Hey guys, so welcome back. We're going to take a little break in the Son Jung-min updates, but it's a related topic because a lot of you guys have been asking about the other college student that passed away around the same time as Son Jung-min, Lee Seon-ho. People are asking, well, what about Lee Seon-ho? Why are we not talking about him? And it really is like a tale of two college students who passed away before their time under very unfair circumstances and who are still fighting for justice in terms of their families are still trying to make things right, and in their fight are exposing long-standing inequities in Korean society. So let's roll back the clock to April 22nd, 4:10 p.m. So this is about 3 days before Son Jung-min's passing, and we are going to go to Pyeongtaek Harbor. So Lee Seon-ho is a 23-year-old Korean guy who is attending college. He had just finished his military service. So in Korea, if you're 23, most likely that's your Korean age, so you're probably 22, and a lot of times if you are going to do your military service in between your college years, you're still in college. And his parents worked at a restaurant at the Pyeongtaek Harbor and found him a part-time job so he could afford his tuition and books and spending money, and also to give spending money to his nieces, nephews. He was a really generous, nice guy. And so they found him a job at the harbor, and he was really, really talented in math, apparently. So he was debating, should I become a math teacher, math instructor? Because apparently, like, when he was little, he was solving all these math problems that even, like, the teachers couldn't solve. And then he was also considering, well, maybe I should just do something technical or slash a little bit more on the skilled trade side, which this job at the Pyeongtaek Harbor would be a great stepping stone towards, because in Korea there actually is a surplus of jobs in the skilled trade because everybody wants to have like a professional job with a college degree. So he was considering going in that route, so he had this part-time job. And we do have, again in this case, CCTV footage to see exactly what happened. And unlike the Son Jung-min case, we have very clear CCTV footage, and we have very clear culpability. We have people who admitted what happened, but we don't have, of course, the final step of the person admitting that they told Lee Seon-ho to do the job that led to his death. So let's go into the CCTV footage. So what he's doing is essentially just been assigned a task to clear the debris from the container. And this is an open container. And these are those big containers that go on the ships. They go in and out of the ports. And apparently this is an open freight container, FRC. And those walls on the side, apparently they are not 100% like fixed. So you'll see that if they get bumped, they fall. So it fell 300 kilograms, which is about 661 pounds. It fell on Lee Seon-ho, and he was just bending down to pick up a piece of wood, and then he died. Now, these are the main points that people have issue with, and unfortunately, it does show the level of unfairness and corruption that Korean people, I think, are a little bit willing to accept, because it seems like an age-old story. So there was no safety management official or signal operator. There was no safety training. There was a situation where he was sent to do a task without training for the first time. And the main thing that we see over and over again that Korean people are beginning to not want to stand for is labeling this as an accident when it could have been prevented. So in the past, it would definitely almost 100% be just swept under the rug as an accident. But now, just like this family is doing, they are fighting to say that this is negligent. This is negligent and this was a preventable death. And so to get to that level, the family is fighting. And so in an interview with the sister, she said the biggest thing was they did not call an ambulance immediately. They did not call 119 immediately. They called their superiors. And just as we saw in the Seoul ferry incident, they did not immediately call for emergency services to save people. They immediately called their superiors to save their behinds. So it's also probably part of the protocol that they've been told before you let any kind of bad news leak out of our company, make sure you contact up the chain so that if we can handle it within our parameters, we can. And that's a huge thing in Korea. It's to try to minimize your responsibility. And I think it is good that Korean people need to call each other out more on that, because people either bribe or manipulate their way out of so much responsibility that they're not learning the lesson. And this type of situation should have been handled, I would say, at the latest mid-90s. Mid-90s, Korea should have graduated out of this, okay? But the fact that it's 2021 and we're still dealing with this, I think it's because you don't learn your lessons if you don't pay for them. And so I think it is good that this family is really pressing for this. And it is a bit unfair that we're covering so much of the Son Jung-min case and not focusing so much on Lee Seon-ho. But I think it's because a lot of people see Lee Seon-ho's case as so familiar. They've seen this over and over again that they've kind of gotten used to it. And that's actually not a good thing either. You should not be used to this kind of situation where you're used to a tragic accident that could have been prevented. Now, that's the key thing. All of this could be prevented, and these are bad systems. And a lot of this comes into play because I think a lot of the times in these companies, they're stuck in a mentality of blaming someone instead of blaming a dysfunctional system. So everyone is so scared to be that one person to be blamed. And so the focus and energy is on avoiding culpability. I think this is good that the family is really pressing that this is negligent and could be avoided, because it completely could have been. This is a death that makes no sense whatsoever. So at the funeral, even President Moon Jae-in attended. The Democratic Party set up an investigative committee to look into workplace safety. Workplace safety is a big thing that the Moon administration really focused on because they're more pro-labor. But even the labor movement is not happy with the progress of labor safety. Every day, about 2 to 3 people die from work-related accidents, and about half are on construction sites. And apparently that's an improvement, but they still think that there's a lot more that could be done. And again, I see this in a lot of areas in Korea where everyone's so focused on like pointing fingers at the person or like who's responsible and not fixing the system. And the most ironic thing actually is if there is a horrible system, like for example, the roads that create all this sort of traffic, but really there's kind of like nothing wrong, but it's just poorly designed. and you call, and I've even called, I've called before, and then the traffic control people, they look on their like, technology and stuff. They're like, but nothing is wrong. Like, they can't blame anybody. So there's nobody to call. So the problem never gets fixed, but sometimes it can take like 30 minutes just to make like one turn. But it's a bad system. So that's why it never gets fixed, because they're only looking to like, whose fault is it as a person, rather than like the system could just be poorly made. Sometimes, yes, you can blame a poorly made thing. Yes, a person made it, but that person is long gone, and so you're never going to be able to blame that person. Although sometimes, yes, when I do drive in traffic, I'm like, oh my god, whoever designed this road should be rotting in hell, because this is not right. So the key thing also here in this case for Lee Seon-ho is that, yes, there was an apology. Yes, there was an acknowledgement. So there's no cover-up here. That's the difference with Son Jung-min. And there is a process that the family is going through to try to get compensation, but the rub is that the direct superior to Lee Seon-ho is still not admitting that he gave the order to Lee Seon-ho to go clear out the container, because that's the key thing. And the key word, just as a tip, if you ever have to go to court, a labor-related matter, is jishi. Jishi means order. That is the key thing that unlocks the door. Jishi, if you receive an order, that basically means that starts to open up everything for Korean labor law. If you receive an order, that means that there is a responsibility that of the person who gave you the order. So it goes up the line. And so this person is trying to obviously avoid culpability by saying, I never gave you the order. I never gave the order. I never gave the order. And he's not apologizing. So here again, we're seeing this situation where that's where the fight is. That's where the fight is. And that's where you will see whether the court will side with business or labor. And then you get to see the bias of the court, get to see the bias of the judges. And a lot of the times they do side with business, because Korea's usually sided with business because they're thinking like, it's jobs. We need to create the economic engine. And so a lot of the times it goes in the business's favor. But again, here we also see the father of Lee Seon-ho trying to fight for justice. And he's saying that this completely is unfair. This could have been prevented, and he really wants to make sure that those responsible are punished, because instead of calling emergency services, they called their bosses, and their bosses called their bosses, thereby wasting valuable time to be able to save his son. Had they only called emergency services first and then called their bosses, we may be faced with a different situation. Similar to the Son Jung-min case, had they only called the ambulance first and then called their parents, we may be also in a different situation over there. So again, trying to save yourself and sacrificing the other person creates all of this unnecessary mess. So the public also says they hope that there's more attention to the Lee Seon-ho case, and a lot of you in the comments have also said that as well. We're hoping that these policies change where there's more safety stressed in the workplace and more accountability, and that people actually learn from their mistakes, because frankly, this is such an old type of problem to have. Korea doesn't like to hear this, but this is sort of like a developing country problem to have. This is not a problem for first world countries, developed countries, advanced countries, countries that are in like the G something club. Okay? So get on it. All right, guys. We'll see you next time, and I'll give you the update on the Son Jung-min case. There are many more developments. Bye.
Tune in next time. Don't forget to subscribe. Find us on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Love you.